Another week has rolled by, and it's time to welcome you to CLEARVIEW, our public enlightenment program. This week, we are treating matters arising from what we have tagged the Jerusalem debate. That is, taking us outside the shores of Nigeria. This topic is coming on the heels of the recognition of Jerusalem as the capital of Israel by the United States President Donald Trump. I have an expert in the studio who will be giving us a clearer view of the issue at hand. He is a foreign affairs analyst, Charles Onanuiju. Charles, you're welcome to the program.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Let me start by quoting the U.S. President Donald Trump as he promises to look at the world's challenges with open eyes and fresh thinking, as well as not solve our problems by making the same failed assumptions and repeating the same failed strategies of the past, because all challenges demand new approaches. Consistent with his electoral promise, Trump announced the U.S. government's recognition of Jerusalem as the official capital of the State of Israel on Wednesday, December 6, 2017. The recognition has put an end to the U.S. 70-year-old policy on Tel Aviv as the political capital of Israel. Now, we start this way. Charles, who do we refer to as occupiers of Israel? You talk about Palestinians, you say Arab, you say, who are these people?
Yes, like you know, the Palestinian question and the Israeli issue have been long-standing. Contemporarily speaking, this land we are held by the Arabs, by the Palestinian Arabs, until the Balfour Declaration of 1920, at which United Kingdom decided to found a new place for the Jews. You know, the world Jewry wanted a homeland. Right in the 1870s, the Jewish Congress that held in Vienna agreed for a homeland. Originally, Uganda in East Africa was touted as a potential homeland for the Jews. And of course, this did not fly. Eventually, the Balfour Declaration of 1920 ceded that land for the Jewish diaspora to return. Of course, you have Jews there, the so-called Ashkenazis. You have the Sephardic Jews, those that emigrated, that came from the rest of the world, and those that were domiciled there before this declaration. So I think the problem persisted. The Jews made an entry, gradual entry. They formed a group, the Haganah group, began to launch guerrilla attacks. They began to against Arab villages and take them over. And of course, there is the biblical angle to it that it belongs to the Israelis, the land of Israel. God promised them. But if you have to define territory by biblical account, then it is the world will really be fraught with a number of difficulties, because there are quite a number of lands that were not accommodated in the Bible. I can assure you there is virtually no mention of my hometown, perhaps yours, in the Bible. So if you have to take the Bible as the basis, there will be some element, some reasonable element of chaos. So the fact remains that this conflict, eventually the State of Israel was proclaimed in 1948. The same very day, 4 Arab nations went to war against it: Jordan, Iraq, Egypt, and Syria. And of course, Israel beat back. They established the State of Israel. And the Arabs refused to recognize Israel. When they draw a map, of course, they don't include Israel in the world map. In the map you see in the Arab world doesn't have Israel. And this continued. Then the second Arab-Israeli war, the preemptive attack launched by Israel in 1967 that destroyed the whole range of generation of Egyptian Air Force, you know. And in that war, eventually East Jerusalem, which was prior to then part of Jordan was captured by Israel and annexed. And Jordan also, Palestinian people have always felt that Jerusalem also should be their state capital, because Jerusalem has significance both for the Jews and for the Muslims and for the Christians. Like you know, the holiest Islamic shrine is in Jerusalem, the Al-Aqsa Mosque, just like the Jewish holiest worshiping place. And so Jerusalem has significance and evokes quite tremendous passion from both sides. For Mr. Trump to suggest that this is a fresh thinking and old problem, I think it is not really factual. It does not take into account the whole complex issues on the ground, because in the UN resolution on the establishment of two states, the two-state solution, which has been the recognized approach of the global community to this crisis, is a two-state solution. One, the Jewish state of Israel, and another, the Arab state of Palestine. That has been the standard solution which the world has unanimously agreed as the framework, and that has been the basis of negotiation all this while. And the status of Jerusalem is one of the most touchy issues. Along with the Palestinian diaspora, a number of Palestinians who were expelled after the Jewish state was proclaimed. Most of them are in Lebanon, in several countries in the Arab world. So these are some of the key issues. In my view, Mr. Trump is putting the cart before the horse. The status of Jerusalem is still a contentious one, and you cannot arrive at a settlement of the conflict without settling the issue of Jerusalem. And if you now declare Jerusalem an undivided capital of the Jewish state of Israel, that would never have amounted to a fresh thinking and old problem.
Now, there is a question here sent in by a viewer who got to know about our promos on the program, that this place called State of Israel now, who are the original, doesn't the land have original owners?
Yes, you see, like you know, there is this question of, you know, there has been several migration. There has been, you know, the Ottoman Empire was wide, the whole region was, the Jews were uprooted very long time ago. The Jewish diaspora, they went all over the world. At a point, the Jewish question became very preeminent, especially after the massacre by Hitler, in which it was alleged that over 20 million Jews died in the camp, you know, and there was an outrage, and you know, the world Jewry also become very significant factor. They were in business, they were in science, they were, so almost everybody who mattered has in the world has one or two things to do with the Jews. They become a significant factor and then begin to think of a homeland. Of course, the biblical reference to that land as Jewish land also came into play, but more importantly, the British decided essentially, just like after the first British scientist of Jewish origin, after he helped Britain to develop the atomic bomb. And part of his reward, he was asked, was to give the Jews a homeland. And these areas currently then occupied by Palestinians, we are considered, the Jews considered ancestral land, and they insisted. Yes, I think the origin of who owned this land might be as less important as the global approach to the solution, to the problem, which is a two-state solution, which means the Jews, of course earlier the Arabs wanted the Jews to go to the sea, even if they drowned in that, it wouldn't matter to them, but reality has sunk in. The Arabs has come to realize that, like I told you, originally the Arab draw world map without Israel. You know, but now the reality has sunk in, and the world has acknowledged that the only way to solve the problem is that these two people are entitled to a homeland. That land has sufficient space to accommodate the two people. So two-state solution has been the standard bearer. And the United States has been a reluctant facilitator of this process, but Trump has trumped every pretense of United States to be an independent and impartial facilitator and mediator in the conflict. In my view, United States has become actively participant, a partisan in that conflict, and has lost its role as a mediator. I think the message has been sent out clearly. He stood alone. The European Union, which has always coordinated foreign policy with Washington, took a very, very strong stance, distancing themselves. Even France, quite a number of European countries took a strong stance, distancing themselves from the position of Trump.
And even more countries are still
Yes, and more countries. And of course, like Arabs, the Egypt brought a resolution to United Nations just yesterday. Of course, it was defeated by U.S. veto. U.S. vetoed that resolution,
yes,
in which the world said that Jerusalem, its status as where the two countries should have their capitals, the potential Palestinian state should have their capital, remains. And that was vetoed by United States.
Right. What could have necessitated Trump's decision?
Well, you see, just like we're looking at what happened today in what happened in South Africa.
Yes.
We are, in my view, two very competent, eminent women. We are savaged politically on account of the surname they bear, on account of the maritime names they bear. Zuma, very competent woman, very experienced fighter, anti-apartheid, and well exposed, was chairman of AU Commission, drafted a very important 2003 document for African renewal, and also was a key cadre of the ANC, lost to nearly a turncoat, Cyril Ramaphosa, who was complicit in the massacre of mine workers in Marikana about 4 years ago. He lost to him. So, and the other woman was a very competent woman who is known to be very solid on foreign policy, who wouldn't have steered the Hornets Bee, especially when it is not necessary. She also lost on account of the maritime name she bears, just like Ms. Zuma lost on account of the maritime. So it was two very prominent, eminent, competent women were savaged by the simple fact of the maritime names they bear. That's very unfortunate for the women folk.
It's all right. Israel is playing host to 86 embassies.
Yes.
All in Tel Aviv.
Yeah, absolutely.
No diplomatic mission in Jerusalem.
Yes.
What do you foresee?
Yes, because, actually the Israelis make symbolics of their meeting foreign visitors in Jerusalem. That's what Trump called reality. That when visiting head of state, the Israelis drag you to Jerusalem. If you're visiting this, they drag you there. So they want you to see that this is in reality their capital. But if it is not broken, why not? Why mend it? If that ambiguous status of Jerusalem has held the parties at bay and has restrained the worst from happening, is it not wise to have sustained that? Yes, especially since negotiation is ongoing to find a final solution. Because everybody believes that Jerusalem's status were one of the knottiest issues in that conflict. And most people believe it should be the last to be negotiated when all issues are sorted out. Issues of the Palestinian, the diaspora, issues of other issues, when they are resolved, then this touchy emotional, like I've told you, Jerusalem is emotional because it contains is spiritual to many people, to the Jews, to the Muslims, to even Christians. Remember the triumphant entry of Christ to Jerusalem, for which Christians are emotionally attached. The Al-Aqsa Mosque, the holiest shrine of the Muslims, and then the holiest shrine for the Jews are all in Jerusalem. So Jerusalem has tremendous, tremendous spiritual significance. So it is not something to have been dealt with in such a combustible manner that Mr. Trump did.
Will you say Trump has acted in the best interest of the United States?
Trump pandered his partisan community, not in the overall interest of the United States. He pandered to his white community, who are desperate to have the bread he promised. And he's throwing Jerusalem is, of course, the religious right where he belongs. I also feel Jerusalem is symbolical to the conservative, social conservatism, the Christian ethics, and all that. But that is very narrow-minded for a world leader, for a country that is leading in mediation of such important and protracted question as the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. For me, pandering to a very, very small community of your base at the expense of your American prestige in that region is too narrow, in my view, too stupid, too foolish, and shouldn't have happened.
But Charles, I'm sure you are aware that U.S. Congress, since 1995, has adopted the Jerusalem Embassy Act, requesting the relocation of the embassy. Why the delay till now?
Yes, like I told you, you see, if one is going to, like it rob United States of Israel as a mediator, like you could see, the entire Arab world is up in arms, from Americans' most friendly countries like Saudi Arabia to Egypt to Syria to Lebanon to Pakistan. Everywhere there is an uproar, you know, because United States sometime, and the naysayers, the hardliners, the Hamas, the Islamic Jihad, now who are saying you were wasting your time originally to engage with Americans are now saying we told you, because most time people like Abbas, PLO, Fatah movement has invested a lot of goodwill in the American-led process. To the surprise, because they have been toyed mostly, they have been taunted by the hardliners. Americans will lead you to nowhere. And now it happens. So these moderates who have been in the forefront of this negotiation, you are now pushing the hard men to the front, the naysayers to the front line. Those who want to resolve the conflict with blood in the street, you're pushing them to the forefront. And I don't think that is the kind of result the United States should expect. But interestingly, United States has been literally isolated on this question by its core partners, especially in Europe.
So that means even Americans may be subjected to insecurity and hostility.
Absolutely, absolutely. And of course, you could see what is happening to Benjamin Netanyahu. There is uproar. The Jews cannot afford to be permanently. Israel cannot be a garrison state. It cannot be a Praetorian state forever, living on military strength, living on excess security. They should also live like normal people. And normalizing in Israel as a normal state will have to do with resolving the long-running Palestinian conflict.
All right. Where is the place of the Bible in all of this? Are some predictions now coming to pass?
Yeah, my brother Bello, I'm not too religious. We are the Bible because, of course, we have this former Zimbabwean president, Mr. Kanan Banana, who has called for a new Bible. You know, that's radical voice of an African saying, look, most of the incidences recorded in the Bible did not accommodate what was happening in the rest of the world, especially in Africa. Because while these things were happening, Africa was not simply blacked out. That the Bible needed to be a lot more inclusive. And the only way to make it inclusive is to rewrite it. Of course, I do not want to offend those who hold the Bible sacred, but incidentally, I seem to share similar views. So I am not really going to find, I have no authority to tell whether what is in the Bible is true and should be the basis for finding a state or not. But for me, the Palestinian question, the long-running Israeli conflict, can only be resolved by that two-state solution, which provides for an Arab state of Palestine existing side by side with a Jewish state of Israel in peace. I think both people can become not only good partners, they can also have great exchanges that will make life for their two peoples much fuller and much better. I have really nothing, I don't know what happens about the spirituality, but I know that if the two people normalize relation, that region could benefit from the ingenuity of the two people. I am very, very optimistic. I particularly align myself with the two-state solution and then because originally, like I told you, if Jerusalem was formerly with Jordan, it was annexed, it was conquered, it was taken by force by Israel at the 1967 war. And the basis of the negotiation is that Israel must return all land seized at the 67 war, including the Golan Heights and East Jerusalem. So if United States now declare Jerusalem as undivided capital of the state of Israel, the very important condition for the resolution of that conflict is almost out of the table, which means resorting to the pre-1967 war which altered the equation very significantly. And that was prior to the resolution 242 that of the United Nations that approved the two-state solution to that conflict. I think that resolution crystallized the wisdom of the global community to solve that problem. And at all times, I think no matter how long it takes, we must draw strength and wisdom from that important resolution 242 of the United Nations.
All right. Many countries have been reacting seriously. Nigeria has been silent. Are you comfortable?
Well, you see, Nigeria also was, Nigeria joined the Arabs in boycotting Israel after 1973 war. You remember, yes. Nigeria also pulled out from Tel Aviv. But recently, I think in the 1990s, President Babangida exchanged diplomatic election. Israel is an important state, no doubt about that. Israel, there is quite a lot we could do with the state of Israel. Of course, Nigeria keeping silent is not good for her. We should align ourselves with the world community, with the world opinion, with the global solution to this problem. And in any case, what Trump recognized as reality is not the reality. The reality is not that Israel, Jerusalem is undivided capital of Israel, and it could be Israeli capital without consequences. That's not the reality. To call it a reality is absurd in my view. The reality is that the two people are intricately linked together, and they must find accommodation within themselves. And that accommodation means they must share where it is supposed to be shared. That's the reality, not Trump's reality.
Well, we really want to thank you, Charles, for being our guest on the program, at least for clearing the view. We've become more enlightened. Thank you so much. My guest has been Charles Onanuiju. Charles is a foreign affairs analyst, and the topic, the Jerusalem debate, came on the heels of the recognition of Jerusalem as the capital of Israel by the United States President Donald Trump. I won't be very correct if I say by United States.
No, by
United States President.
Yeah, because by U.S. President, Mr. Donald Trump. Yeah.
Well, next week we'll bring you another topic with another guest, and until then, I say bye for now. I am Odion Bello.
Christmas, we wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy